Welcome back, Park Juniors, to another ACT test strategy video. Just a reminder that statewide ACT test is going to be Tuesday, March 8th. Today, we're going to talk about the reading and science sections. So just briefly, what we're going to talk about is I'm going to go over what the reading test is going to look like and what the science test is going to look like. I'm going to give you a brief review of those TestNav tools again. And then I'm going to give you some strategies that can help you be successful in the reading and science tests. All right, so the reading test is 35 minutes long to complete 40 questions. So pacing is really important on this test. There are 4 passages, and each of those passages have 10 questions. Now, the 4 passages fall into these categories of prose fiction or literary narrative. This is kind of what you read in your English classes. And then there are 3 that are nonfiction. So one is social sciences. So think about like psychology, sociology, things like that. Then there's a humanities, which is like the arts and music and things like that. And then there's one about natural sciences. So think about like your science classes. Additionally, one of these is a dual passage where there's 2 different passages that you kind of have to compare. The science test is also 35 minutes to complete 40 questions. The science test, though, is divided into 6 passages, and those passages have 6 or 7 questions each. There are 3 different types of passages in the science section, and one type is called a data representation. This one's going to be a lot of tables and graphs. Then there's one that's a research or a study or an experiment, and those are going to have a lot of data and tables and things, but also some reading. And then there's one called a conflicting viewpoint, and this is going to have only reading, and you're going to be comparing multiple scientists or students' views on one topic. It's important to know that the science test really isn't about your knowledge of science, although background knowledge in science can be very helpful. It's really more about the interpretation of the science data or the scientific situations. So when you enter TestNav, again, these instructions are going to be the first thing you see. Get yourself familiar with these ahead of time so that you can skip this step and move right into the work and not waste that time. When you're ready to move on, you're going to hit this arrow. Remember, these are the arrows that help you get to the next question or back and forth within the test. The reading test is going to look like this. On the left side, you're going to see a reading passage, and then on the right side, you're going to see a question that's being asked about that passage. Up at the top, they do tell you what kind of passage this is. It's important to also see that you have to scroll sometimes within the window to see the full passage. So here, you're going to want to scroll on the inside to scroll and see the rest of passage A there. All right, so this is an example of a dual passage. So here we say have passage A and passage B. So you're going to have to read both, answer questions about both, but then you also have to compare them. And this is what the science test is going to look like. On the right side, you're going to see your passage or your data tables or your charts or things like that. And then on the right side, you're going to see your question that's being asked of it. Again, you are going to have to scroll within the window to see all of the data tables. And this is an example of a data passage. You'll notice that we had, here we have a graph, and on this we had a table. So this is a data passage. All right, there's also this answer eliminator for both the reading and science test. So if you know one of these answer choices are totally incorrect, you can switch over to this X and cross out the ones that you know are not correct. If you click the review, here's where you can click to see what questions are answered and which ones are not. If the orange dot is in front of it, that means it's not answered. Also, that little blue flag means that it was bookmarked as a spot in the test to go back to. When you finish the test, you do have to submit your answers, and this is the same for all 4 of the tests. So when you get to the very end, it'll tell you, congratulations, you finished, and you do have to hit that green submit final answers for each of those tests. And remember, we don't want to leave any questions blank. So if you have any with orange dots, or when you're here on the end screen, this green circle with the check mark, it'll show a number there if you've left any questions blank. So before you submit your final answers, be sure to make sure that all of the questions have been answered. However, it's important to keep an eye on your timer. Remember, you only have a certain amount of time, so keeping track of your time is important. When you get down to 5 minutes, this is what your warning is going to look like. When you take the paper test, a proctor will physically say you have 5 minutes left. But here you're going to get this little orange box kind of up by the timer telling you you have 5 minutes left. It's important to then go through and make sure that you have filled in answers for all of them. If you run out of time, you're going to get this time expired warning. And again, at this time, you're going to want to submit your final answers. All right, so reading test strategies. Remember I said there's 4 different passages. So one of the strategies is to order the passages by your personal order of difficulty. So let's say that you really like to read fiction novels within your class. Then you should start with the fiction passage and do that one first because you'll be more interested in it. Let's say you really like your science classes. If that's the case, then you should start with the natural science passage and do them in the personal order of difficulty for you and which ones you have the most interest in. All right, so the first strategy for this reading test is for the dual passage. Whenever you see this dual passage with a passage A and a passage B, you're going to see questions that are specifically for passage A or passage B. So the suggestion for this is to read passage A, then answer all the questions for passage A. Then go back and read passage B and answer all of the questions for passage B. And then, after you've done all of those, go back and answer the questions about both passages. So the other thing is to work the questions, okay? Remember those now, later, never type of questions. Those now questions are the ones that you can answer super quick. They're easier, they're shorter, you can answer them quicker. So like this one here, the question itself is short. You can read it quickly. Then the answer choices are also pretty short. You can read them quickly, so you should be able to answer this one a little bit more quickly. But this is an example of a later question or possibly even a never question, depending on how much time you have left. This is one where it compares the two passages. So you have to read something from A, something from B, and compare it. This is the type of question you might want to do later because you might have to go back and reread parts of each of those passages, and that's going to take up some time. And then keep in mind these ones where there's going to be some highlighted information. Don't just read the highlighted piece and try to answer the question. Read at least the sentence around it to get some context to help you answer these questions. But be careful of these types of questions where they say all of the following except, or which one is least likely, or the passage does not. These types of questions are there to try to trick you. So these are your strategies to help you with the reading test. Okay, so now for the science test. This is similar to the reading test in that it's divided into passages. So your first strategy is also to order the passages. Remember I told you there were those 3 types of passages? Well, some of them are easier than others, okay? The first type of passage that you're going to want to work on are these data passages. These are going to have tables and graphs and charts and figures and very little reading. These are going to be the easiest and shortest, so these are the type that you should do first. The second type is the study or experiment passages. These are, again, going to have tables and graphs and charts and things and a little bit more reading, but still pretty short. These are the ones that you want to do second because you can do them the next quickest. And then the third one is this conflicting viewpoints. This one, you really have to read the entire passage, and it's going to be the most difficult because it takes the longest. You're comparing what different scientists or students think about something. So this is the one that you want to do last because it's going to take the longest. Another good thing about these data passages or the study passages is that you can skip the intros. Now, I'm not saying never read them, but skip them and only go back and read them if you need that information to answer a question. But most of the questions in the science, in the data part, or in the study parts can be answered with just looking at the tables and graphs. Look for data trends. So in all of these tables and graphs, look for trends that are happening. As these numbers are going up, these numbers are going down. Or as time passes, these are going up. Look for increasing and decreasing patterns within the data. And don't forget to use process of elimination. For example, this question, if you look at those graphs, do you see a place in any of those graphs where the data trend is going down or decreasing? No. So in this case, we could eliminate choice B, C, and D because they all include something about decreasing. So these are your strategies for the science test that can help you be more successful and pace yourself to get through the test in time. And then there's these strategies that you want to remember for the whole test. Remember the now, later, never. Don't spend too much time working on one question. If it's a now question, it's something easy that you can answer quickly. Save yourself the time, just answer it, get going. And then there's those never questions, those ones that when you read the question, you're not even sure what it's asking. Those are the ones that you want to guess the smart way and then save that time for something else. And don't forget about the column of the day or letter of the day. Remember, you don't want to leave any questions blank. You're more likely to get some of those right if you guess the smart way. So pick a letter or a column of the day, and if you need to fill in a guess using that letter. All right, so if you have any questions about the science or reading section of the ACT or the ACT test in general, you can get a hold of me. My name is Amy Bloom. I'm the instructional coach here at Park High School. You can email me or you can come find me in my office, which is in 133.